You made an incredible recovery through all your hard work, and you even got back to running and running marathons. So you mentioned that you'd done running before and you were quite active in that sense. So what part did running play in sort of your life before, and how did it change when you got back to it?
Yeah, so there was definitely always two sides to my running as well. So the first time when I was like, even though I was into all this partying, I was a smoker, I was out, smashing it every weekend. I was using the running as like a way to offset that in the way that I felt about myself. So it was kind of like, I was always that Jekyll and Hyde type nature. And like, I knew that there was something like the partying didn't always sit quite well with me, but I had this other thing to running, that if I could do these marathons and, I wasn't just doing normal marathons, I was going to places like running marathons on the Great Wall of China or Antarctica, or through the mountains in places like Colorado, and running across frozen lakes in Siberia and Greenland and all these sorts of things. And like, that was part of my travel nature. And the running was like, it made me feel like, oh, if I can do these things, then I'm not like fucking up completely, right? Like, it's my self-defense mechanism. Like, on the surface, people will see these achievements and maybe they won't see the underlying, my struggling nature and all the stuff that goes with that. So that was, a big part of my life. And I'd actually, run a marathon on every continent before I got sick. And that was a huge part of, my makeup before I got sick. So that was definitely like a driving force to get back to that, to feel that I was still like that. That's how I felt like I was achieving and really getting stuff out of my life. So that was, again, a driving force to get back there. But when I did this, the time after the after the illness, I wasn't so much doing it to hide. I was more like, as I got healthier and, I took up healthier practices, I took up yoga and meditation and healthy eating, and became a vegetarian, or started eating this plant-based diet, and, doing all these sort of things to, because my health became so important to me. And I started moving towards this other way of running, which wasn't really, it might sound a bit cliche, but I wasn't so much running away from myself. I was more like running towards something. I felt like it was such a different experience. And yeah, so there was definitely two sides of that. And the running actually became something quite amazing, because I wasn't doing it in this detrimental, almost like the way that the running was before I got sick was almost like part of that, like self-inflicting pain on myself. It's not an easy thing to run a marathon, and you kind of get this, you go through all this pain and like this sense of endurance, and you overcome yourself sort of thing. And it's, I don't know, there's almost like a bit sadistic on yourself in a way. But then the second time it was very pleasant, and I found this different way to run. And like, I was able to get so much more out of my running, because I was doing it in this more kind of like less self-destructive way, and more kind of like in a way that was kind of helping me. The results were just exponentially better, and my running actually became infinitely better because of that.
Yeah, and it led you to having a world record, being a world record holder. You were what was it, the fastest, it was to run a marathon on each continent. And and you did it in under a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? So, yeah. So as I was saying before, like before I got sick, I'd run a marathon in every continent. So just over the years of traveling, I'd just go around the world. And if I was in a new cool place and there was a marathon on, or there was an event that I wanted to go to, I just kind of chipped away at that. So I was already in what's known as the Seven Continents Marathon Club, which at the time when I joined, there was only a few hundred people that were in that. So it was a pretty cool and exclusive thing to do. It's a lot bigger now. But it just coincided when, I was getting healthier and just kind of finished up work and all of these sort of things. It's all this kind of opportunities were kind of presenting themselves. I was living life in a very different way, and I got this opportunity to run in this inaugural event, which was to do the Seven Continents again, but to do it as a race and to try and do it in under a week. So I ended up making that the focus of my life. This was still very early. This is only like, I started training for this about 6 or 7 months after I'd left hospital in a wheelchair. So I was still I was still in my recovery when I started training for it. but all the things I'd done health wise with the yoga, meditation, diet, and all of this sort of stuff really helped and accelerated that process. And I got myself, like, by the time I got to the start line, which was down in Antarctica, I was the fittest I'd ever been. I was super healthy. Got down there, gave everything I had at this event. I actually did like quite well. It was like a really great experience. I got through it. It was fine. Once we got to marathon 7 in Sydney, which was, just over 6 days after being in Antarctica and touching down in every continent in the world and getting out and running a marathon non-stop. I was still pretty fresh, and I ended up having my best run on day 7 in Sydney. Not only ran the fastest marathon of anybody all week, it was actually like only 2 minutes off my PB at the time. So it was like one of the fastest marathons I'd ever run. And I'd done a heap of marathons up until that point. So doing that on day 7 was definitely like an indication that I was back on track with my health and life and all that sort of stuff, and ended up being the first across the line in Sydney, which meant I was recognised by the Guinness World Records for fastest time to complete a marathon on each continent, which was, I think it was about 6 days and 18 hours, something like that. So that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool experience and definitely gave me that sense of satisfaction that, the surgeons and all of that they were right in one sense that I wasn't quite the same, but I'd become a bit of a different person, and I definitely felt like I'd overcome those challenges, and I'd managed to do it in just, I don't know, it was probably about 14 months or so after surgery, something like that.